who dat says Russ is going to kill this season. I hope so. Sean says, which player has the most to prove this season? I think we did this last week. Maybe not offensively, but defensively. But who do you got, Anthony?
The most to prove on offense. See, I've got my more reserved take and I've got my spicier take. We'll drop the hot one. It's Andrew Thomas. Prove you can stay healthy, man. Like, seriously, I think it's so important. I know he doesn't have a lot to prove on the field. We know he's a top 5 to 10 offensive tackle in the NFL when he's healthy, but prove that you can be healthy, because look at how good the Giants were when he was in 2022. They went to the playoffs. That's pretty much because Andrew Thomas was healthy that they went to the playoffs. When he's not healthy, we lose games. So prove that you can stay healthy. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I think Kayvon Thibodeaux has a lot to prove. Deontay Banks as well. It's a toss-up between those two, but I'll go with Kayvon as a former top 5 overall pick. He immediately, when he was drafted by the Giants, said that he wants to be the next Michael Strahan, that he has aspirations to be an absolute legend. We need to see you start to make good on those promises, start to look like you have a legendary trajectory. A lot to prove there, especially with Abdul Carter entering the mix, number 3 overall pick, now drafted even higher than Kayvon with even higher expectations. He has a lot to prove, but he doesn't have to prove it right away. Kayvon, you're kind of running out of time. So he's the number 1 player I think has a lot to prove on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Kayvon has been that guy since he was a rookie. I think there's been a lot of pressure on him. I think fans, at least on Twitter, I see a lot of people bash him, say he's a bust, say he's no good, including Des Bryant, who got into a war of words with him on Twitter, which I thought was funny, because Des never won anything. So I always find it amusing when he says anything. But, I saw that war of words, but there are fans saying he's a bust, he's no good. I remember Carl Banks was stuck up for him on, I forgot the clown's name on WFAN, Sal Licata, whatever. But, Carl was trying to stick up for him, and Sal pretty much just hung up on him. And I was like, what the hell, So I think Kayvon Thibodeaux definitely has a lot to prove to, the fans. He's just got to be more consistent. There is definitely, the guy's ultra talented. I mean, you can see it. It doesn't always have to translate in a sack. But I feel like maybe if he was just more consistent every game, because there are some games that just doesn't seem like he's even there, or he doesn't make any kind of an impact. But when you're the 5th overall pick, I think people expect a lot more of you. Deontay Banks is another one as well, but the fact he was picked 24th, I don't think there's as much pressure on him. But those are 2 guys that are first-round picks that if they step up on defense, this defense could be elite. I mean, it could literally be an elite defense if Tay Banks and Kayvon take a step forward to go with all the other players that are on this team. I think the defense could be a lot of fun to watch. And again, as a guy that grew up in the 80s, as a kid in the 80s, watching those legendary linebackers, LT and Banks, Pepper Johnson and Gary Reasons, and Harry Carson, to go with a guy like Leonard Marshall, who, to watch those guys just wreck everybody every week. There's no reason to think that this Giants defense cannot wreak havoc on quarterbacks. I can see a lot of sacks this year. I can see them being top 5 in sacks. I mean, they were top 10 in sacks last year. So if they stay healthy, and this is with Dexter Lawrence missed 5 games, this is with Bobby Okereke missed 5 games, Kayvon missed time, and they had no Abdul Carter. So think about it. Those guys can stay healthy. Shit, the Giants could lead the league in sacks. I mean, if you think about it. So especially with an improved secondary where the quarterback may have to hold on to the ball for 0.2 of a second longer, and that's all it takes in the NFL. It goes that fast. So I'm excited about the defense, man. I think it can be really, really good, especially if that offense can just sustain some drives and keep the time of possession even. Not to where our offense is on the field 27 minutes a game and the defense on the field 33 minutes a game, which is what it seems like it's been the last few years. If it's 50-50, 30-30, if you will, this defense can really, really be something good. Shane, there's a lot of pressure on Shane Bowen, I think, with that group of guys. Offensively, I'm going to say Wan'Dale Robinson. I think Wan'Dale, like you mentioned, he's in a contract year. I know it's not all his fault, but I think with a guy like Russell Wilson behind center, I think that he has a lot to prove, especially with how proven Malik Neighbors was last year. He's got to be a guy that gets those big 3rd down and 7s. He's got to be the guy that gets those yards after catch. He's got to be the guy that goes over the middle and, make these clutch catches for us, get those first. That's what a lot of these slot receivers do. 3rd down 6, they get an 8-yard slant, first down. We have to rely on him to do that type of stuff, and maybe he can break a couple of big ones if he gets out in space. But I think Wandale's got a lot to prove this year. He was a 2nd-round pick. We passed on a lot. Joe Shane passed on a lot of prospects that people were like, how did you pass on George Pickens? I think was one of them. I remember Breece Hall was one of them. So there was a lot of people that were like, why didn't you take – there was other players too, not just those, but I don't know. Just wanted to put that up there.
That's me speaking my broken Italian.
Oh, I know. I just wanted to put that up there. Tutto, grazie paesano, grazie. Tony, I've been telling Bad Dog for the last 7 years about head coach and carrying the club to championships, referring to Conti. But Bad Dog stubborn won't believe that Fat Dumbo ain't no good. He won't listen to us, mate. He don't like Daboll.
I see that, and I like that you call him Conte. It's Conte, Antonio Conte. He's the manager, the head coach for Napoli. He like is a serial winner. Anywhere he goes, he just wins championships. The head coach makes all the difference in soccer, European football. So I get what Tuto's saying, but hey, listen, Daboll was head coach of the year for a reason in 2022. That was a really bad roster that he won a lot of games with and went to the playoffs. So we'll see.
Yeah, I am. Tuto, I'm Italian. You know I'm stubborn. That goes without saying. It's in our blood, man. We are stubborn. We are stubborn by nature. Maybe I just want to believe that he's good, Tuto. I think that he can be a good head coach. I really do. I think he's had a lot of shit to work with. I think he's dealt with a lot of injuries, and he's had a tough quarterback room to say the least. You want to say whatever you want about Daniel Jones. That's fine. He certainly didn't live up to expectations, but he also couldn't stay healthy. So you're throwing Tommy DeVito out there. I mean, he won games with Tommy DeVito. He won games with Tommy DeVito. I mean, what other head coach is winning 3 games with Tommy DeVito? So he won a game with Drew Lock. He was Tim Boyle had to go out there and throw a couple passes. So I want to be a little bit more patient with that fucked up. I like Daboll. I can't help it. I like him. I
like Daboll too. And like I said, in 2022, the Giants had an average offense. They only had an average offense because of Brian Daboll. Their defense was good. They had talent on that side of the ball, and so they ended up with a top 10 to 15 unit. Top 10 to 15 defense and an average offense will get the Giants in the playoffs. I think that's their formula that Brian Daboll said, this is the bare minimum that I need, and I can work with that. If the Giants manage to have a top 10 defense this year, I trust him with Russell Wilson to at least have an average offense, and I think that they will be competitive. So, but it's put up or shut up, right? If the Giants have 3 wins this season, I'm all for calling Daboll all the mean heavyweight joke names and getting rid of him. So, it's just put up or shut up.
Yeah, agreed. It's weird because I really liked Joe Judge year 1 a lot. I know you're only 6-10. I really liked him. Year 2 was like the first game of the year. I was all immediately off the wagon when he threw that challenge flag on the scoring play. It drove me out of my mind because I'm like, this is a dude that preaches fundamentals, and I'm like, you don't even know the rules, bro. They review all scoring plays. You can't challenge a scoring play. The league automatically looks at that. So what are you doing? He's like, I was trying to get their attention. You're an idiot. You didn't know the rule. Just admit it. And he had a terrible year there, 4-13. And again, he had Jake Fromm back there, and Mike Glenn. And it's not like he had a great team either, but I couldn't stand him. Daboll had a bad team, won 3 games, and the team looked terrible. And yet I'm willing to give him another shot. And maybe it's because he actually had a successful rookie campaign as a head coach, won coach of the year, brought a team that nobody thought would go to the playoffs, won a playoff game for the first time in 10 years. So maybe I am being a little bit more patient with him because he's proven that he actually can win something. I know it's not the ultimate goal, but we hadn't tasted any success like that in a decade. So maybe I'm a little bit more lenient for Brian Daboll as opposed to Joe Judge, who was 6-10 and then 4-30. And not to mention when he ran the back-to-back quarterback sneaks, I think everybody knew at that point. That was embarrassing.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say on that before you get to this chat, there's a really great perception around the league that Brian Daboll is a really good coach. Like, he's very well respected around the NFL, and fans who are not fans of the Giants think that he is awesome and that the Giants roster is really bad. But Giants fans think he's a bad coach because we had to experience the last 2 seasons. And I understand you would assume that we, because we watch the team so much, know our players and coaches better than anybody else. But the history is that that's not the case. Xavier McKinney going on to become an all-pro elsewhere. Saquon Barkley going on to become an MVP level player elsewhere. We always talk about how players end up leaving the Giants and then becoming way better, right? And I wonder if a lot of those players who end up leaving the Giants and becoming way better are players that around the league, people look at them really highly, and Giants fans, for whatever reason, are just down on, and then they walk. And I wonder if that could end up being the same thing with Brian Daboll, where Giants fans are critical of him because, we've had a couple bad seasons, but he's still really well respected around the league. Everybody seems to think that he's one of the best offensive minds in football. I don't want the situation like Saquon happens where Daboll leaves and then has a ton of success elsewhere and then look at the Giants with the egg on their face once again. I'm afraid of that happening.
Yeah, I don't want it to happen either at all. Adam, he says, after a strong drafts and smart free agent moves, is it possible Joe stays and Daboll is fired if the season goes bad? I would hate that. I think it is possible, but I would hate that. I'm an advocate. If you get rid of one, get rid of them all.
Yeah, and I think that's how they would do it. I don't know. I can't see one surviving and not the other based on the way things have gone because, yes, he had 2 strong drafts in a row and some good free agency moves. Still let Saquon walk, and that definitely embarrassed the Giants, definitely embarrassed John Mara. Still signed Daniel Jones to that egregiously terrible contract, so he's not without his fault. So I don't know. He's made up for it to some extent, but he definitely would need to be held responsible if it's another losing season, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just think they both need to be gone. But Joe Shane's definitely made mistakes. I think he rectified them, though. And again, listen, the Barkley thing looked bad because it was hard knocks. I discussed this ad nauseum when he left. I'm like, he didn't want to be a Giant. I don't want to tell you guys. I know you don't want to hear that, and I know you'd want to place blame on Joe Shane or whatever, but he didn't want to be a Giant. If he wanted to be a Giant, he would have signed a contract. It's that simple. It was $1 million or $2 million or whatever the hell it was. It's not like they couldn't have made that back to him in other ways. When they tagged him, they went out of his way to give him an extra $1 million because of whatever the hell rule it was. They gave him an extra like $900,000. They gave him the absolute most they could for the tag, but he didn't want to be here. I mean, the team was bad, and he obviously didn't want to be here. He went to Philadelphia. Then, yeah, he left and became, we all at least knew he was great. He didn't play the way he played in, last year for Philadelphia. He didn't play like that here in 2023. He didn't play hard for us. How many times did he get caught from behind when he was here? He looked, the first game I saw him against Green Bay last year, I'm like, he looks like he lost like 15 pounds, man. I'm like, he looks so much leaner and faster to me. Where were the Giants? He didn't want to get hurt. I don't care what anybody says, and that may hurt people's feelings, but I believe that. I don't believe he was motivated to be here. I think he wanted out. I think he got out. Maybe that had something to do with Joe Shane. Maybe it didn't, but he didn't want to be here. He didn't want to be on a losing team. McKinney, he was my favorite player, so I hated seeing him walk, but he didn't get along with Link Martindale, and he had the ATV accident, and I think that started to go south a couple of years ago too, so. And I also think the Giants would have been hard-pressed to give him $17 million a year. So this year they went out and they rectified it,
Yep.
Last one of the night, Sublight says, what do the Giants got to do differently in camp to avoid a total blowout to start the season again?
Stop playing scared and stop trying to avoid injuries. When you play scared of injuries, that's how you get injured, or that's how you start the season off really slowly, and then you play from behind, and then you get injured in the long run. So essentially what I mean is that the Giants don't use up all of their afforded time to put the pads on. They don't scrimmage enough at those training camps, and the starters barely play a wink during the preseason. They should be playing during the preseason because you could get hurt walking across the street. You can get hurt in the middle of a practice. You can get hurt on the fourth snap. Aaron Rodgers on the 4th snap of the first game of the regular season. You can get hurt at any time. So you might as well go out there and get the reps during the preseason so that you're ready to play at a high level in week 1. But the Giants have been so cautious about putting their players on the field in the preseason because they've been so afraid of injuries that it's had a really bad effect on them in the regular season. They start losing games, and then they get injured as a result of that. So they're injuring themselves in the long run. It's like they're affording themselves some healthy time in the beginning of the regular season when everybody's playing like shit so that they can play like shit and then get hurt later on. That's essentially how it works for them. So go out there and compete in the preseason, get the reps. It's important. The best teams, I mean, this was the best one bad dog. I remember screaming. I was so pissed off on Fireside Giants when I saw week 1 of last year's preseason, Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud, all of these MVP caliber quarterbacks taking snaps in week 1 of the preseason, and Daniel Jones on the sideline with a fucking walkie-talkie. What are we doing? Where did he earn that privilege? Mahomes is out there. What the fuck? I was so pissed.
I reiterate everything you said. And I mentioned that a number of times myself. You can get hurt at any point. Tom Brady got hurt in 2008, I think, or whatever the hell season was when they got away from the low hit on the quarterback. Maybe there was the first series, maybe. You never know when you're going to get hurt, man. You got to play. You got to get reps. You got to build cohesiveness. You got to build timing. You got to work on stuff. You got to work on snap counts, cadence. You got to work on plays. You got to work on timing so you're not getting full start on 3rd and 1, which pisses me off more than anything else. 3rd down and 1, bit, ball start, 72 off, whoever the hell it is. And then it's 3rd and 6. So that type of shit it's just like pitchers fielding practice or whatever in spring training. These guys get at bats to get their timing down. The Giants got to play some. I'm saying they got to play all 4 quarters, but they definitely got to play more minutes than they have in the past, without question. Thibodeaux says, Bear Dog, nobody says we hate Fenwick. We are saying he ain't ready for head coaching positions. He's learning and experimenting on the Giants' payroll with terrible records. I mean, again, Thibodeaux, he won a playoff game his first year, so I think that's why I'm more lenient with him. But hopefully he's learned. He went to the school of hard knocks, and he was on hard knocks literally. All we can do is hope that he's learned from his mistakes and that he'll be better this year. And Thibodeaux, if he has another bad year, he won't be back. He will be gone. If he struggles again this year, there is no doubt he's going to be out without question.
Yep. Yeah, do or die for him and Shane. And I will say, though, Thibodeaux, some of what he said there is definitely right, because it's been, we always say rookie growing pains, year 1, 2, 3 for players, and how they're going to, have their growing pains through the first 3 seasons of their career. Rookie head coach, rookie GM, they've definitely had their growing pains. But now that you're in year 4, you got to put it all together. So that's essentially what it is. So I can give them some leniency for the first few seasons and some of the mistakes that they made. They're definitely living on borrowed time at this point after last season, but that borrowed time is from when they had the playoff win. But now it's year 4. So you got to put it together, put a competitive team on the field. And if you don't, somebody else will.
Correct. Well, that's it.